I've always worked pretty closely with the department when I'm doing therapy with the family. And in some cases,
So you really don't have a privilege, their communication with you is really not privileged.
In a standard therapy setting, it is. It's more protected than in these cases. And I think because we set up in the intake, this is what is going to happen. So there's an informed consent that's a part of that.
But in normal therapy, there is a privilege.
There's some, as long as it is not unreported abuse, as long as it is not the individual is a threat to themselves or someone else. And then if an individual waives their confidentiality by signing a waiver, those are the only instances. Is that something that's been difficult for you?
No, I just, when you
curious.
talked about that, I'm thinking if the parent doesn't take responsibility because his attorney says, don't take responsibility anyplace. If he were going to his doctor, the doctor couldn't repeat it either. You know, so I didn't know where your position was in that.
People don't usually say my attorney says don't take responsibility. I just end up in that place with attorneys. And although some people that aren't as sophisticated have told me, well, the attorney said, or maybe it has to do with my attorney, you know, they'll say something like that when I lean on that piece. So let's see, then I think the number 4 is that reasonable length of time. You're all pretty familiar with the 15 out of 22 months. And so we may write in our report, there is poor prognosis, there is you know, great risk. We're not going to say these kids should be removed from the home, but we are going to say, you know, here were the criteria that were written, that the parent had and saw and knew, so there's no secrets. These are the things that goals that we're working on, and in this period of time, these things have not changed. And so we become factual reporters in court, but it's not our job to say whether or not a child can remain in the home.
Is that based on a subsequent assessment, or just communications with other people involved, or communications directly with the parent?
Oh, how do we know whether or not treatment recommendations, that would be then, it is, so you have the assessor that does the initial assessment, and then it is usually the therapist that ends up in court. They know what it is that has happened in therapy.
You know, it sounds like that just by using this as kind of our screening thing, as we see situations that we could send much more appropriate people your way. Because I mean, a lot of times we know that this parent is not going to admit that they did anything wrong, or that they're going to insist that they're not using substances, even though their UAs are coming back dirty. And so, you know, as you just go down this list, you can pretty much identify the things.
Well, and you could screen out based on that, and I have seen families work because the therapy then is with their child to build trust and to build a relationship. And I've seen families do some pretty remarkable things. And so I think sometimes, you know, it's hard to say who is going to benefit and who isn't. I think one of the, one of the attachment trainings that I've been at is called Circle of Security, and many of you may have heard of that training. And that whole training was created for pregnant teenage homeless moms, and that's the population that it was used on, and probably the population that we think would least have the capability. And so I guess when I think about that, I think, you know, that there's a lot of hope, and but I'm the eternal optimist, so, which makes this process kind of difficult for me sometimes, quite difficult, because it's not always hopeful in the end.
Well, what I do like about it, you know, is that it's pointed to a constructive end beyond just finding out what are the capabilities of this parent. And it really does what I think CPS workers often say they're intending for when they request a parenting evaluation, and that is to find out what does this parent need and how can they be helped, rather than, you know, tell me that, well, what they're often looking for is, give me the worst possible picture of this person so that we can use that in the termination, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to me that all of this would be much simpler if this was addressed when the mother was pregnant. I'm just saying.
Well, and, you know, there are more and more classes being offered. Florence Crittenton has a new free class starting March 19th that they're doing, and they're providing childcare, and it's a Circle of Security class, and it you know, in terms of parenting classes, and I've taught a lot of them myself, it is a pretty powerful tool at getting at what are your barriers to parenting safely and nurturingly. Yeah. I must have left something in the coffee machine before I left today, because I have one thing that I wanted to leave you with, and I'll just talk about it, but I'm gonna end with it. So I'm wondering if you have more questions. Mm-hmm.
Are there other things for treatment that you recommend besides individual therapy? Like is
Oh,
there
thank you.
parent-child?
Yeah, parent-child, it's called dyadic, so the parent-child therapy. And so in that parent-child therapy, we're looking at increasing their understanding of how important they are to their child. Parents that you're seeing don't get that. They don't understand that they, you know, the umbilical cord was cut, but they are still attached like that. That they are that important. And so, and how to soothe their child's distress, and understanding how to, kids will stop bringing you things if they don't have a relationship with you. They won't want to share their enjoyment, and so it's recreating that for a parent and a child. So there's a list of individual recommendations and then parent-child recommendations. And then if the child is not returned, and we often will list, here are some, you know, minimal things that should happen. You know, there should be a closure session with the parent and child, and so there are some recommendations like that. So thanks, that was the piece that I had left.
And do those happen concurrently, or do the parents have to demonstrate some specific benchmark in individual therapy before they start the dyadic?
Well, in order to do reunification, especially where a child has been significantly traumatized, parents need to take some responsibility, and so I push on that end, because that's the beginning of the repair of the relationship before steps toward reunification would take place. But other than that, no, I think they can take place concurrently, and I think they often do. And it's almost as if, the parent realizes my child counts on me for more things, and then the parent pulls ahead a little bit more, and then they have some increased understanding, and so that's the hope and push of this assessment and treatment.
I have a case where the mom is, I consider crazy, but she's got a 1.5-year-old, and she's got a 16-year-old, and she's got one in the middle. So, are assessments like this available, like you would do this regular assessment with the small child,
Mm-hmm.
and then do you change that to look at the other kids?
And the 16-year-old would be pretty tough. That may have to be more therapy rather than a structured assessment. But the MIM, I think it's the Marshak intervention assessment or something, and it can be used with teens. So, and so there would be some interaction between that 16-year-old and her mom that would give some information to the mom and to the therapist on their relationship and what they might want to work on. So, and the one in the middle would have that altered assessment, but the interview could be done. Yeah, how does that mom, can that mom tell any stories still from that 16-year-old's childhood? And can she talk about the relationship she has? What words would she use to describe her child? And then tell stories.
And when they were young, it was a very good relationship.
Mm.
So.
And so then I might push it to, it then and now, and look at what is it that happened in there. Was it mental illness? Was it trauma?
Stress.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Well, and we all have stress, and some people respond differently for different reasons. They're not given the tools or the resilience.
Have you had a chance to teach the department about this process?
Back when we did this, I forget, Bill, you were there for the video introduction to it, and you and Ryan were there, and from the department. I don't know if there was anybody else.
Well, I don't even know. There may have been a couple of workers that are still there, but.
Right, and we've offered to go up and we've worked with different individuals in the department, but I don't even know their names up there anymore. There's been that many changes since I've had a family. So yes, that's been our intent. We've offered, they were in transition when we offered.
Well, yeah, I think it'd be really worthwhile to talk to Mark Larimore.
We went up, Cheryl and I went up to Great Falls and did a presentation, and we didn't, it wasn't very well set up, so they didn't quite know what to do with the information once we gave it to them. So.
I feel like there was one of these trainings about their new, how they're transitioning to a new treatment plan model that's more focused on just like the basic safety as opposed to this like laundry list of things that you do and then maybe you do or you don't get your kids back.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like this could really tie into that, but I'm not clear where that is at.
Yeah, it's really their investigative model, it's,
Okay.
SAMS, it's what, I can't remember
Yeah.
what that stands for.
Safety
but-
assessment, system, safety assessment something system. Management.
And we actually asked somebody there to come talk to our group about, a group with other therapists at Cornerstone Counseling, and we meet regularly, and we asked the department to come and talk to us about what they're doing differently, and we haven't been able to get that scheduled, so.
Corey, Costello is her last name, or Sarah Corbally, and they're at the central office across the street here.
Oh,
Those are the two people that, Sarah just took Shirley Brown's place, she's the administrator for the department.
okay.
And then Corey is right underneath Field Project, something or other. But those two people will come and do a good job for that.
Okay.
Well, Mark does a really good job,
What's Mark's last name?
but Larimore, he's Ryan's replacement.
Oh,
And that's Laramore.
okay. And what was Corey's last name?
Costello,
Oh,
she's from Great Falls,
oh, okay,
but Sarah's here.
okay.
So I talked to Sarah and Corey about having joint meetings with you guys and us and getting everybody on the same page with Family Find and some of this other stuff too.
Well, and, so, other questions or comments or?
Good stuff.
Good, yeah,
So
good
complicated.
information.
And it is complicated and simple, it kind of all at once. When I gave you the example of thinking about the delight, you could get that picture of a child in your head, and that's what we're looking for. And so, in just kind of in closing is, the attachment makes all of the difference in relationships, and you can, this is written from the perspective of a child, but you can also think of it intergenerationally. What was it like for this parent? So kids that are attached are, the more secure they are, the happier they are with their parents and feel less anger at their parents, and they turn to their parents when they're in trouble. And they learn independence, they learn how to solve problems on their own, and they get along better with their friends and have lasting relationships and have better relationships with their siblings and have a higher self-esteem, and they believe that most problems have an answer. They trust that good things will come their way. And they trust the people they love, and they know how to be kind to the people around them. And that's what attachment gives us. So thank you, all, thank you for
Thank
your
you.
work. I really am so appreciative. Oh, and I'm supposed to be buying tickets tonight.
Nice, yes, we got the
Yes.
message.